just to start, a little message that I wanted to share. The theme this year is about collaboration. We're starting to summarize all the things that are happening on Long Island in this last year, and I have an op-ed in the packet. And all of these projects would not have been done without folks working together, left, right, environmentalist, developer, civic chamber. Civic and chamber got together in Kings Park and got sewers. Community people get together in Baldwin and from all different races, backgrounds, cultures, and want to see Grand Avenue revitalized. Just last night in Westbury, folks came completely together for a really phenomenal, you hear more about that in a minute, but a phenomenal TOD plan. It only happens with collaboration, only happens bottom up. I think the problem we're facing is that we get messages, 30 messages a day in our phones that tell us from the top down why we shouldn't trust each other, work together, everyone's corrupt, everyone stinks, and it's the elitists on one side that don't want to deal with anyone in local communities, and the extremists on social media that want to attack the elitists, and it's like, hey, if we can lob off that bad behavior and 80% of the rest of us can just work together and get some things done, that's what we do anyway. So let's not tune in to the elites or the extremes. We just don't need to do it. We can make that choice. I was thinking about social media, and I watched with my daughter this show Stranger Things. Anybody watch this? I think social media is the upside down. It's this upside down world that drains our energy, that normal people turn into monsters. Relatively normal people turn into monsters on this thing. We can lower the volume on some of this stuff and do what we know, like what we're doing today. Work together with real people and work collaboratively. The people on the stage know how to get that done. So let's carry on. Let's hear from them. Lastly, though, everyone's got a green card at your seat. It's the Long Island Main Street Alliance. We ran a business group for a long time, but we've now formed a Main Street Alliance, which isn't just small business, it's anyone that cares about Main Streets. No membership fee, you just have to agree to support bottom-up planning and collaboration, community-driven revitalization in your downtown. There's a number of things that you can get involved with. You can get involved with press, research, whatever it is. Fill it out today. We're going to bug you about it at breakfast. We're going to bug you about it at lunch. We want as many members as possible in as many communities that are doing downtown work. Tell us where you live and where you work. Not because we're going to track you down, but we may invite you to get involved in issues in your community. So with that, let's get on with our program. So I will introduce Thaddeus from this side. We'll start with Suffolk. We got Mike Lavorata, the Lindenhurst mayor, who's with us this morning. We got Chad Lupinacci, who's Huntington Town Supervisor. Chad, thank you. We got Ed Werheim, who's the Smithtown Town Supervisor. It's just great to have Smithtown in the house again, once again. Angie Carpenter, Islip Town Supervisor. Richie Schaefer, Town of Babylon Supervisor. Needs no introduction. Joy Brown, Newsday. We got Pete Cavallaro, Village of Westbury. We have Don Clavin, the Town of Hempstead Supervisor-elect. He'll tell us what happens in the future, not what's happening right now, but we have the Town of North Hempstead Supervisor, Judy Bosworth. We have Joe Saladino, Town of Oyster Bay Supervisor. We have Village of Farmingdale Mayor and a really awesome red suit. How awesome is that, man? Village of Farmingdale Mayor Ralph Extern. And then the fellow who finally escaped Valley Stream. We don't ever see him leave Valley Stream. We're like the mayor of Valley Stream, Ed Fair. Thank you. And Joy Brown is here, and I just want to say about Joy, and we all know about Joy. She's done this. This is the 14th year you've done this. You know that?
I broke an ankle one year.
Okay, yeah. So she's really the only person that I know in the media that thinks at a high level but can connect to people in a real level. And that's just such a unique, it's a gift. It's a gift, Joy, it really is. You can connect to real people, and that's so what we need to do in our work. So Joy, thank you. Take it away.
What up, y'all? Let's keep it going here. Okay, Ralph, this is all your fault, you and your Christmas tree tie. So, first question is actually going to be a general question to all of you guys. All right? It seems to me, we've spoken a lot over the years about the death of downtowns. What impact has smart growth had on your downtown? Is it a community center again? I know in Huntington, they just had the Christmas parade. I should say we, since I live in Huntington. Looked to be very, very well attended. I never saw so many signs in my life. But are downtowns coming back? Do you see more events? Do you see more family-oriented things going on? I'm going to start with Mr. Christmas Tree Tie over here.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, you're 100% correct, Joy. We have to, you build a downtown, you use transit-oriented development, but you got to get everybody active in the community events. Farmingdale has 4 music festivals a year where we close down the street. We have 4 parades from St. Patty's Day and ending with Columbus Day. We have a spring fling on Main Street. In fact, we just recently renamed Main Street the Culinary Quarter. So not only does Nassau County have a nautical mile and a miracle mile, you can come to downtown Farmingdale for the Culinary Quarter Mile. You have to have village events. We have, in fact, this week, we're having the high school students paint all the windows in our downtown Christmas scenes, and we're giving a prize for the best decorated hand-painted window. So you have to get the community involved. That's 100%.
All that in a Starbucks, too, right? Yeah. What's going on over in Suffolk? Are your downtowns coming back? I mean, Huntington came back with a vengeance, I might add, but Lindenhurst, right?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. As Mayor Exran said, a similar situation in Lindenhurst. We've, for many years, like so many of the downtowns, a lot of the big box stores came in and they took a lot of the small mom and pop stores, pretty much put them, a lot of them out of business. So what became a need to change our stinking thinking, and trying to convince some of the folks who've been there many years that we had to kind of rethink the way we did things, and that those small businesses were going to have to change, and that that old saying is the only thing constant is change. And we decided that we needed to look towards what Patchogue, what Babylon Village were doing, and many of these villages who were creating more restaurant, more family-friendly businesses. My own daughter and several of her friends would go to Babylon. I myself, as at the time deputy mayor, would find myself going into other places because we didn't have the kind of restaurants and places that our locals wanted to attend. We've also taken on a transit-oriented development with the Tri-Tech project across from our train station. So we're on the move. I mean, we got a little bit behind the 8 ball while other villages had started moving forward, but we've decided that we were going to put this in hyperspeed, and now we're kind of catching up. But I have to also thank Supervisor Rich Schaefer, who has been a big help to me as my town supervisor, and really been a kind of a mentor and helping me sometimes when I have a question and I'm really a little concerned that what the right move is. I've been able to seek counsel from him and Mayor Pontieri and Patchogue and Mayor Scordino and Babylon. So we've got a great bunch of people working with us.
Mr. Schaefer, long time no see.
There you go. Just, and Mike's, I appreciate Mike's comments, but I got to tell you, if it weren't for Mike's leadership in getting the buy-in and getting residents on board, Lindenhurst is a very old school village. And to get people to buy into change and to get them to understand how it's going to benefit, It takes someone like Mike, his personality, his willingness to sit and listen to conversation after conversation after conversation and put the time in. And remember, mayor is a part-time job. Mike's got his regular job and has to do his own personal life, but Mike spent that time and pulled off with very little opposition the TriTech project, which is 260 units, and I see our deputy supervisor, Tony Martinez, is here as well, and Tony worked hand in hand through our industrial development agency, because I think Eric mentioned collaboration, and this was us putting any political differences, any differences aside, and got to work together to pull off that project where we had a groundbreaking about a month ago. Demolition has started, and it's going to be a great project. In fact, I invited Moody's out. Moody's, the investment rating agency that rates all of us and for our borrowings and our bonds, and I had them get off at the Lindenhurst train station because they didn't believe that Babylon, they constantly would not upgrade us to their highest rating of AAA because they said we were a low-wealth town. And even though we had wonderful budget numbers, they said you can't get to AAA. So we got them, and Tony remembers this. We said, well, why don't you come out and take a look at our town, our low-wealth town, and we'll show you what's going on. And I said, we'll get off at the Lindenhurst train station, we'll pick you up. So when they got off, and I think Mike was there with us, we said right across the street, envision 260, what, 260? Yeah, putting foot traffic out, there's gonna be restaurants, development, increase assessed value. Here's your low wealth town. And then we took them to Wyandanch Rising. We took them to Copeg Commons. We took them up to Farmingdale. And by the time we got back, they were literally just telling us, without officially telling us, you're getting the AAA bond rating because of the collaboration, Republican and Democrat working together, getting the job done, different levels of government piecing it together. And recreating a brand new downtown in Lindenhurst, which for years was one of the mainstays of Long Island.
Well, we seem to be making the transition over to some of these projects. Westbury, you guys got it done last night. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah, we're very pleased, as Eric was there. Last night, we concluded a 2.5-year project, which was funded by our Downtown Revitalization Grant, and we rezoned about 53 acres of property adjacent to our train station into 7 subzones, all transit-oriented development subzones. If you analyze the full build-out, that over the 15-year period, which we use sort of as our basis for SECRA, that has the potential of allowing the development of up to 1,500 new multifamily residential units on those 52 acres. It's about 35 units an acre is what it kind of comes out to. But in our village, we've had, over the last couple of decades, 800 units of multifamily units developed near our downtown on Post Avenue, within 3 or 4 blocks of Post Avenue. So to answer your question, I mean, I think transit-oriented development has shown itself to be the best answer in terms of redeveloping some of the communities on Long Island and the downtowns on Long Island that have suffered from some of the big box stores, the other retail things that have happened over the last years. It certainly has helped in Westbury. We have approximately 140 storefronts on our Post Avenue, our main downtown. We probably have about 3 or 4 vacancies. So we have almost a fully utilized downtown. I'm not saying that every single storefront is optimally utilized. We like to see some changeover, but with some of the things that we've done and some of the things that we will be doing in the years going forward, I think that we will see some of the changeover that we want to see. And so we're really excited. It was a long time coming. I'm probably the happiest person in the room that the project is completed. And but as I think Rich Schaefer said, I mean, we were fortunate, as Lindenhurst was. We had virtually no opposition to the project. And so we think there are 4 or 5 multifamily projects percolating that we're waiting really just to have the passage of the zoning. And so we think within a relatively short period of time, we're going to be moving some of those projects forward.
I'm curious, though, what is not optimally utilized? You don't talk about a store in your community, but
No, well, for instance, as I said, we have about 140 storefronts. Maybe we have 7 nail salons or 7 hair salons. And I think that what we try to accomplish, and there's nothing wrong with having a nail salon or a hair salon, but I think we would like to see a greater diversity of services and retail on our downtown. And I think that as we get new consumers with some of the new developments that will be coming in, I think we will see some of that diversity of services.
a good nail salon is hard to find. But am I, ladies, come on, am I right? Right? The important things in life. All right, Don Clavin, dude, you are inheriting like the Yoda of old as the devil development dreams over at the Hub. What are you going to do, and when are you going to do? I mean, are we going to be dead before something comes over there? I mean, what's going on?
No, I hope not. Jeez. I look at it that.
Happy holiday, by the way.
Yeah, man. It's a great way to really start off a Friday morning here, ladies and gentlemen. It's and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and to everybody on the panel, I want to say thank you, because a lot of the members of this panel have actually taken the time to reach out to me and are taking the time to sit with me, to talk to me about successes, to talk about obstacles, and one of the things everyone is from Judy to Supervisor Schaefer to Supervisor Carpenter, who I spent about 3 hours just sitting down with yesterday. It was about putting it together as a team. As I've always said to people, I could literally fight with anybody in the audience. It's very easy to fight with people. But at times it's difficult to work with people, and that's how you accomplish things. And when it comes back to the initial point of the downtowns, everybody has a pride in their community, and everybody wants to celebrate their downtown. And we have great successes in the town of Hempstead. We have communities like Belmore, who have really just got it together, brought all the stakeholders in, from the stores to the civics to just the residents who embrace it. Look at Malvern. I mean, if any of you don't have anything going on this weekend, Malvern's going to celebrate a holiday theme, and it's a true throwback, where they have the barrels with the fires burning on every corner, and they want you to be down there and bringing your kids, and that community feeling. And I grew up in Valley Stream. I went to Sal's Barbershop, and I got terrible haircuts every Saturday with my dad. But I'll tell you right now, Ed Fair has a vision, and he's got a board that he's put together in Valley Stream to create that. And that's what every community has to do, and that's something that all of my colleagues have really stressed to me. And I look at the Hub as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for something that hasn't hit its stride. And right now I think you have a board that is going to work together. I know, and I told the story after election night, that at 2 o'clock in the morning, before I even got home to talk to my wife, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the first phone call I made was to Dorothy Gooseby, the Democrat on the town board, to call her and say, I'm looking forward to working with you. And she picked up the phone on the first ring and she said, I knew you'd call me. Because that's what it's going to take. And if we're going to have success at the Hub, we're going to have success in Baldwin, if we're going to have success in any of the communities we want to see investment in, because as you said earlier, we all want to live in a great place. We all want to bring our kids to our downtown. We all want, the best. We want to pass something on. It's going to take working together, and that's the commitment. And I really think the right developer is doing the project right now that understands that, it's not I get everything. It's a world of give and take. It's, building something within the means that can be substantial and maintained there. We're going to be successful. So with me, we're going to continue to work, and if anything, we're going to help expedite that project, because it's a win-win for the town residents, it's a win for Uniondale, and frankly, it's a win for every taxpayer in the area.
So personally,
Yeah.
you personally, what's your vision? What would you like to see there?
No, it's got to be a mix. Look, you want the commercial. You've already had the development of some of the resources at the hospital. You want to bring Hofstra into the mix. And look, you want to have housing. You know, I always tell people, if you build it, people will stay. I always talk about a dealership in Hempstead. It was a Cadillac dealership. And they were going to knock it down and they were going to put up housing. People said, oh, who's going to live there? Well, it's maxed out. And why is that? Because there are residents who lived in different areas who wanted to stay close to their kids. There were people who are going to Adelphi University. And you know what? There are so many students living in this complex now. The school is bringing buses over every single day to get these kids to school. Well, you know what? West Hempstead, we knocked down the Courtesy Hotel, an eyesore. We built, you know what, transit-oriented housing there. And guess what? It's maxed out. And that's what we need to do, particularly, I think, in the town of Hempstead. You know, times have changed. You know, means have changed. There's a real need for housing for seniors, but for young people, and we're going to embrace that, and I think you've seen that. You know, Chris Carini and I talk all the time. You know, Seaford, they're doing so many fun things out there because they feel like they don't have a strong downtown. So they're doing a lot of things just at the train station to have the community involved. So I said, everybody wants to be proud of their area, but we also have to have a means of people staying here. And that's a big concern. And I think that could be an accomplishment of the hub of embracing not just young people, but also, you know what, realizing there are just a lot of people here that are saying, my kids have gotten older. I don't need this big house, but I don't want to leave. And why would I want them to leave? We have to find a means to try and build housing that's going to keep everybody in this area.
Okie dokie. Let's roll this. You all want to clap? Go. Let's wheel on over to my girl. Angie, what's up? What's up? What's going on in Central Islip? You got a lot going on down there, and also in Bayshore, I believe.
There's a lot going on all over the town, east, west, north, and south. South isn't so good because of the storms, but that's another story. Fire Island is the southern part of the town of Islip. CI is very, very exciting. We were the recipient of the 2019 $10 million revitalization grant from the state of New York. Thank you very much, the governor and everyone involved in the REDC. It was a very intense process getting the award and going forward the process, and I'm sure that Mayor Cavallaro and can corroborate what I'm saying. It was an expedited process over 9 months. The community was very, very much engaged. And now we're at the, pulling contracts together and getting hopefully to that final step. Part of it included $600,000 for storefront revitalization in amounts of $25,000. So someone that is just there and is seeing all of this exciting development happening around them can upgrade their storefront too and do some renovations. Apart from the downtown area, and this is less than 2 miles going from Suffolk to Smith Street on Carlton, around there is so many exciting things happening. A lot of housing stock, condos, apartments in the old New York Tech property that has been sold, 87 acres to Steel Equities, and we're working with the developer, and that has an incredible amount of potential. They're looking at retrofitting almost all the buildings, and that, I think, is a huge, huge plus. It was something the community want. When you talk about working with the community, they listened, and that is going to be a real important component of the project. There are, having the 2 courthouses, and we have a soccer facility that's being built. The town's building a brand new animal shelter, all happening in CI. Also, when you talk about downtowns, Bayshore is, I think, a poster child for a community coming together. I am really excited about it because when I started in government, I was in the legislature. That was part of my area, and we worked very, very closely with the county at the time, the county executive. There were numerous meetings with the community, school superintendent, the chamber, et cetera, with various stakeholders from the county, whether it be the police commissioner because they had crime issues, or the DPW commissioner because of infrastructure issues. But I have to give Bob Gaffney credit, he sat in those meetings, for many, many months. And having the ability now as the town supervisor to see the exciting growth and the sheer, the busy activity. You drive through on a Friday night and people are walking on the street and there are restaurants all over the place, more coming, more housing. When you talk about downtown and transit-oriented development, TriTech now has made a proposal. The old Toro School of Health Sciences, they sold the property and are moving that health component school to their campus in CI, where they have the law school and they're building a dorm. So that presented an opportunity for capitalizing on the location across the street from the train station, down the road from the ferry terminal that goes over to Fire Island. So that is very, very exciting. I was a little bit jealous hearing Rich talk about how the community in Lindenhurst just bought in, and in Westbury there was very little opposition. Farmingdale, no opposition. I wish I could say that. That isn't the case. And so it's incumbent upon the developers to do that outreach, and I keep telling them that. And our planning department is very willing, our commissioner, to sit with developers, with community stakeholders, and explain the process. We encourage them to do a website, a very interactive website where people can go and ask real questions and get real answers, not what they saw on Facebook. So, and likewise in Sayville, that has become a poster child for opposition. The old Island Hills Golf Course, 114 acres, has been purchased by the Recklers, and they're proposing an apartment complex that is probably at this point a little bit too dense, and the community has come out in total opposition. I mean, an organized effort to the point that they formed a not-for-profit with the sole intent of defeating the project. So we have our challenges there, but I really, really believe that if we sit with the community, we engage the community, and we give them something they're comfortable with, at the end of the day, everyone is better off, and providing opportunities for keeping our millennials here and keeping our seniors here. People are in these big houses, their family leaves. I had a woman tell me the other day, I've got a 4-bedroom house, I'm sitting there by myself. I would love to live in a senior complex, but I don't want to leave West Islip. So I had a conversation with the school board president. One of the schools that's been closed for years was leased to BOCES. BOCES did not renew their lease, so we've got a potential piece of property that the Board of Education has decided to put on the market, and they're looking at senior housing. So, I mean, that really is a win-win. So it is an exciting time for us in the town of Islip, and I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to be there and help make things happen.
Let's go west to Valley Stream. Mayor Fair, that's kind of cool. Did you always aspire to be a mayor?
Fair, am I live here, Joy?
Yeah?
Fair is fair, Joy.
Fair is fair. I like it. I like it. You've got a lot going on in Valley Stream. That's one of the older downtowns that you have, and it's a community that has gone through some interesting changes, some great changes. Tell us what's going on.
Well, first, so many smart and interesting things were said by all my colleagues up here, and there were so many points that I'd love to touch on, but we don't have the time. But I have to thank Mayor Ralph, because I'll always be remembered as the guy who was sitting next to the guy in the red shirt, in the red jacket. So I will be recognized and remembered as sitting next to Ralph. But no, Joy, truthfully, you talk about change. Valley Stream was celery farms. That's how it started, was celery farms. So sometimes people will say, you'll get some opposition to change, and you have to realize that the only thing constant, as they said, is change. But one of the interesting things that was talked about before me was that mayor is a part-time job. So it's true that it's a part-time job, and one of the things we realized we needed to do was to put together an economic development team. So we have 3 full-time staff members whose sole purpose is to work on interaction with politicians, developers, businesses, and the community, because you do need that synergy of Republicans, Democrats, older people, first responders, empty nesters, and you do have to create that mix of people to continue to get your vibrant downtowns. One of the interesting items that has come up was we just opened up a 43-unit apartment complex, and all the naysayers would yell and say, the buildings, why you keep putting up these empty buildings? Well, they just opened up a 43-unit apartment complex, and there were 500 applicants. 500. So I turned and said, oh, here's a building no one wanted and was never going to be successful, and there's 500 applicants for 43 units. So it's clear there's a demand and a need and a desire for this development.
I'm sorry, let me ask you something.
Of course.
500, where are these people coming from? You know,
Everywhere. We actually found a lot, Joy, were from Brooklyn.
okay?
A lot were from Brooklyn. Everyone knows, we're in the southwest corner of Nassau County. Everyone also knows that Valley Stream was named the best place to live by Money Magazine, which, Eric, I slip that in every single solitary time I can. But obviously we have the Long Island Railroad Station right there. We're the shortest commute to Manhattan. We're also the shortest commute to the Barclays and Brooklyn. And there's an awful lot of people who are realizing if they can't afford to be in Manhattan or Brooklyn, well, Valley Stream is the next best place to be. So we have found an awful lot. We had a unit open up Hawthorne Court. I would say it's about 75% from Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Let me ask you all something. How many of your children, friends, significant others moved from Long Island to Brooklyn? Just raise your hands. Let's just see.
Oh, my
All
grandparents
right.
started in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's supposed to be a happening place, but Valley Stream is happening-er, right?
We would hope.
Okay. Let's go to Smithtown and talk about sewers. No, we don't have to talk about sewer. You know, Smithtown's kind of an interesting.
Sorry,
No,
sorry,
wait,
we're going
wait,
to talk
wait,
about.
Let me put that in context. You know, many of us who live in Huntington, in Suffolk County, have cesspools. Nassau, they have, this great and glorious thing called the sewer system in most areas. And Smithtown's been kind of interesting because I know that in years past, you couldn't open up a new restaurant until another restaurant closed down because there wasn't enough capacity on the sewers. That's what I meant like that. I wasn't talking crap. I was just talking about sewers, that's all. But you've got more than sewers going on. You've actually got a lot going on down in Main Street.
Yes, we do, Joy. And in Smithtown nowadays, we frequently talk about sewers, because you're absolutely correct. We did not have them. We couldn't start our revitalization program without them. So right now, as most of you probably know, Kings Park is prepared to go in 21, be completed in 23. Took a lot of work to get an alienation bill out of Albany to start that project. But I do want to thank County Executive Ballone, Senator John Flanagan, and also Supervisor Rich Schaefer, who was very, very instrumental in helping us move that out of the State Assembly and out down to here. So thank you, Supervisor.
Do you all know what an alienation is? Does everybody know what an alienation is? We're not talking about a divorce case with alienation of affection.
What we could do, Joy, is we had a piece of parkland for a pump station, and by state law, that parkland has to be alienated by the state legislature to be able to build on it because it was designated parkland. So it's something that's very complicated because there's multiple governments involved, but we got it done. So Kings Park, we're happy to say, is ready to go. In Smithtown, we are working now with St. Catherine's Hospital for property to be able to take capacity into Sewer District 6 in Kings Park for the Smithtown Business District. And starting this March, we'll be breaking ground in the Business District in St. James on Lake Avenue. There'll be a dry sewer main with plans to go into a treatment plant in the Gyrodyne development, which will take place years down the road. So we feel that sets us up for all of our business districts to start to really thrive. I will tell you that we're very pleased that They already are. There's a lot of interest because of those issues. They know it's coming. They know it's real now. So we're receiving new businesses every day. Eric was there. We just broke ground for the first transit-oriented development right in the heart of Smithtown.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, there's 5 Smithtown council people and supervisors sitting there on a smart growth project.
There was, it'll be 71 market rate apartments and 9,500 square feet of retail right in Smithtown. We also have just completed our 3rd assisted living facility to take care of our seniors in needed use. We are in the process of under construction or permitted about 350 rental units throughout all of Smithtown as we speak. A modest rate condominium complex right on 111, which is in the heart of Smithtown in the business district. And we're also proud that we had a number of blighted sites, some of them right in the business district, primarily in Smithtown. We've cleaned those up. We've got the property sold. We have CarMax moving into one site, Tesla with a car dealership in another site, and we have 98 market rate apartments on Jericho Turnpike and Comac that are under construction as we speak. So Smithtown is moving very, very well, and we're very proud that, to the point before that you asked, Joy, we see much more activity. We have the concerts in the summertime. There's concerts in every hamlet. There must be 8 or 10 of them. They've increased. We just had our 4th tree lighting at Town Hall with our new showmobile, and we had about 400 people show up. So there's a huge amount of excitement going on in Smithtown. I don't think it's a secret that it was kind of a sleepy North Shore community for a while, and not
You
much was
think?
getting done. Yeah, I do. But I have a great town board who's here today. We are all working very diligently together. There's no opposition, and that makes it work. So we're extremely excited about where Smithtown's going to go in the future.
All right. All right, you can piggyback.
Just real quick, but Ed didn't give himself enough credit there, but you passed over the Gerardine and the St. James, and I know Mario Matera's here, who's on your committee from St. James, but Ed pulled off putting Mike Fitzpatrick and Steve Engelbright in the same room and getting them to agree about, and we know Gerardine has been talked about forever and ever and ever, and
But
there's
not as long as the hub, but go ahead.
and again that's it's on the border of Brookhaven and Smithtown, and Ed, to his credit, was able to pull that with Mario's assistance and a couple of other people behind the scenes nudging people along, but that was a major development to get the sewer connection going for St. James. So Ed, you deserve a great deal of credit for pulling that one off.
Judy, I was going to wait till you were on your cell phone, but you got off of it. So. No, it's all right. It's cool. It's cool. It's all good. So tell us what's going on in North Hempstead.
So, this is on. So North Hempstead is a happening place.
It's a happening place?
It is a happening place.
Okay.
I'd just like to acknowledge that our Commissioner of Planning, Michael Levine, is here with us today, as well as Wes Sternberg, and I see our Town Clerk Wayne Wink with us. And it's important to mention that because whatever we do as a team. So if you were to come to one of our town board meetings, you would be hard-pressed to say who the Democrat is, who the Republican is, because we are fortunate that we have a group that works together because we're here with all the same purpose, and that's to do what's best for the residents of the town of North Hempstead. And you can't emphasize enough the importance of that spirit of cooperation and the ability to do that kind of consensus building. We have just tonight, there's a Christmas tree lighting in Manhasset. There's a poster contest along Plandome Road that will be voted on tonight. That brings also hundreds of people. We have talking about concerts. So we have concerts in the summer. We have a Winter Wonderland at Clark Gardens. We are in the process of working with Climb at no cost to our taxpayers, adding 5 miles of bike and hiking trails. So to be fair to Mayor Fair, I would like to say that Money Magazine has, in fact, stipulated North Hempstead as one of the 8 best places to retire to in the United States of America. So that, I think, is a pretty great. One of the reasons, of course, is the proximity to the city, but also we've got a great Project Independence where our seniors are supported in so many ways. There's social work services, nursing services, but we also have a transportation component to Project Independence. So anybody in the town of North Hempstead who's 60 or above can get free taxi service to food shopping twice a week, as well as very reduced fare to any medical or doctor appointment. So that is something that makes living in North Hempstead for our seniors great.
So you define senior as 60 and above?
Well, that's how they define it.
All right.
Okay.
I
I remember the first time I got a Project Independence newsletter, and I looked at it and I said, "Why am I getting this?" And I went, "Oh, that's why I'm getting it." But interesting, you talk about housing for seniors, and what I'm finding in North Hempstead is that if there's a project that's proposed for seniors, and that could be 55 and above, there's very, very little opposition. If there's a project that's proposed for younger residents, there is opposition, whether it's from school boards. So Peter, I think it's fabulous that the Westbury School Board was supportive of your efforts. We're finding that in North Hempstead, for the most part, our school population is not declining. In fact, it's increasing. And so our schools, understandably, our school districts are concerned about increasing numbers with the thought of how to support that. But we've got to do better. We've got to make sure that we have a climate in the town that will support housing, transit-oriented housing. I'm looking forward to, there's something on the table for transit-oriented housing in Roslyn. I think that's something that needs to be explored more fully. I think we're on a better track to getting that done, and I see Eric going, all right. But we need to be doing that. There's the Brookfield Macy's project, and this is something where when I talk about consensus building, we need to make sure that our communities understand how this will benefit them, and it needs to benefit them. They need to see these developments, these projects, as something that will be a positive force for them and not something that's going to bring all kinds of negative implications to their areas. So it's a lot of moving parts.
Let me ask all of you guys and women, this age gap in terms of getting multifamily housing done. I mean, I think traditionally on Long Island, it's been easier to get the golden age done rather than anything else. Now there's an emphasis on workforce housing, an emphasis on young people housing. Are you finding the same kind of gap between acceptance, more acceptance, still the same acceptance of golden age and less acceptance of housing for young people? Because that's what everybody seems to be doing.
I think it's specific for the project. We've had instances, there was a project on the Sunrise Highway Service Road in Oakdale. It had been a driving range. The developer came in with a plan for senior housing, 4 stories. It was adjacent to, or is adjacent to, a property where it's senior housing but sprawling buildings, 2 stories. And his thesis was, you build these 2 stories, people move in 55 and older, the knees are good, they take the top floor, they don't want anybody on top of them, then 5-10 years go by and all of a sudden the knees go and they're tired of schlepping the groceries up the stairs, so they want ground floor or they want an elevator. So he proposed 150 units. I can't remember what the number of acres was, but he wasn't asking for any relief at all in that vein, but almost concierge kind of building, swimming pool, fitness club, etc. There was a lot of there was opposition. I don't want to say a lot, because only 3 people came out, and all 3 were opposed. There was no one speaking in favor of it, so it didn't move that night. And it was 62 and older, so there would be absolutely no impact on the schools. But for some reason, because it was close to Sayville and the project that was being proposed there was concern that if this 4 stories was built there, it would set precedent. But there already are many, many 4-story buildings in Bay Shore and other hamlets. So I think it's really specific to where it's being proposed.
But you're telling me that I can look forward to creaky knees and pushing groceries up the... Just checking.
And schlepping.
Schlepping, okay.
Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, so when we were doing this rezoning project, we obviously did a lot of public engagement. Vision helped us with that. I would say, and we got comments from probably 500 different individuals in all the different contexts. And I would say that the comments were more supportive of housing for millennials and for kids of people who are living here than it was even for senior or age-restricted housing.
Really?
Our zoning code that we just adopted incentivizes all of that. It incentivizes millennial housing, micro units, incentivizes veteran-preferred housing, incentivizes age-restricted housing, because we want a plethora of housing, choices. To Supervisor Bosworth's point, we proactively met with our school board before we made the proposal that we did. The presumption was, well, if you're going to come out and develop potentially 1,500 units of housing, what is that going to do to a school district? The Westbury School District, which is one of very few that is burgeoning in enrollment. The enrollment has grown over the last decade, not shrunk. And we were able to demonstrate by developing statistics from specific projects that have been done on Long Island, as well as national statistics that Vision and Eric helped us with, where we proved to them that the number of students that were going to be generated was far less than somebody might imagine, and that the accretive benefit to them in terms of additional revenue, even with pilots, the accretive additional revenue was going to far outweigh the cost of educating any additional students. So I think there is a general acceptance today, better than there was maybe 10 years ago, but I also think that when you're doing these projects, either the developer or the municipality, if you're proactive and you go and sell and develop the information that's necessary to sell that, I think there is an acceptance for the younger or the housing oriented towards younger people, because I think most people of our age understand we would rather not have our kids move to North Carolina or Tennessee or Texas. We'd rather have them be here, but they have to have the housing options to be able to do that.
Okay, so let me ask you all this. How many of your children have in fact moved away from, how many of you with children have moved away, your kids are gone, they've left Long Island? Okay, are they in the city? Raise your hands, let's see, who's in the city? Are they down south, Florida, North Carolina? Yo, a lot. Anybody in the Midwest? Midwest, you're back there? Anybody else in the Midwest? Here too? Texas, where are you guys, Midwest? Grand Rapids, Michigan? I got St. Paul, Minnesota. My son was living in California. He said the weather was too nice all the time, so he decided to go to... Like, dude, what's up? All right. I say, before we go any further, there's something I should have said at the beginning, but I forgot. We're after an election. Some of y'all won. Congratulations, right? Because to clarify, nobody up here lost. But some had to run and some didn't. So with that, I'm going to go over to Mr. Saladino.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by wishing everyone a blessed and healthy and happy holiday season. Welcome to the town of Oyster Bay. We're very happy to be the host town for this important event, and I see the room filled with so many of our friends in government that we continue to work with. Please raise your hand if you're a mayor, a trustee, or elected official in the town of Oyster Bay. I see Walter Priestley. Thank you, Mayor. Boy, you got a volume control on that jacket? We see Bernie Riba here. Walter Priestley's here. I think I saw Mayor Sirota, Michael LaPetri. We're thrilled to be here and be part of this. and be opening the doors to a new renaissance in the town of Oyster Bay. Please raise your hand with a show of hands if you're a resident or if you work in the town of Oyster Bay. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you all here today. We're continuing to open the doors to smart growth, protecting our environment, making more affordable housing for our workforce and for seniors. And some of the most exciting places are downtown Hicksville, where we won a $10 million DRI grant. We expect to have shovels in the ground this spring, and lots going on. I see Lionel Chitty here. Thank you for all of your work in getting that started as we continue down that road. Downtown Oyster Bay is another target for us for redevelopment, utilizing the water, utilizing all of the resources, and building upon that. We're changing zoning in our downtowns. We are embracing all that is transit-oriented development. We understand the power of mixed-use development and the new programs while protecting all of the quality programs in the town of Oyster Bay. We have a true jewel I see walking in, newly elected Councilman Steve Labriola. Thank you for being with us, Steve. And it's a good team. It's good synergy. We continue to work on these redevelopments and our rezoning, and we understand that the growth and the economic health comes to properly developing that while all of the environmental protection programs that we're embracing. And yes, there are challenges. I spend a good part of each and every day fixing the problems that we've inherited, and now we went from a $44 million deficit to an $8 million surplus in our budget. We've paid down by the end of this year, thank you, over $150 million. It'll be just about $160 million capital debt reduction while getting the roads repaved. So there are challenges, but there are so many solutions. And Joy, I want to also take this opportunity to thank everyone who is sitting here on this panel, all of my colleagues and friends in government sitting at the tables and this panel. We truly have a bipartisan panel, not just because we're from different parties, but because we work together closely to share best practices. I know each and every one of my colleagues, I pick up the phone, ask questions of them, and they'll say, well, we did it this way or that way. They call me, it's always the same question. How do I institute same-day permits in my town? It's important. Time is money, so we've cut down that time. That's been a big part of it. You asked the question earlier about pushback or which receives more hurdles, whether it's senior housing or whether it's housing for young people. The reality is both are fine. Both are being embraced. It's the number of units. It's the unintended consequences, like creating traffic jams. So by making sure that we have smart growth, better ways for walkability, as we've seen in Farmingdale and downtown Patchogue, by reproducing that and the best practices in the town of Oyster Bay, we really are creating a new day. So I'm pleased to be here. I'm pleased to have our team, and congratulations to everyone who is elected and re-elected. And we know that 2020 is going to be a very exciting year, whether you want to get your project off the ground, start up a new business. But I will leave you with this thought. All of us need to work together with our representatives in Albany to ensure that they start paying for the unfunded mandates. We talk about this each and every year, but we have to make this one of our highest priorities. We're getting strangled with the costs that are foisted upon us from Albany, whether it's a town, the counties, school districts, local municipalities. We're doing quite a bit to share services and save money, but we need more help from Albany to pay for those unfunded mandates. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I always save my town supervisor for last because my inclination is to let him go first, but I have to fight that so I don't show favoritism. But before we get there, in all the times I've done this panel, I've never heard so much kumbaya in my life. I mean, really. I mean, it's. Well, talk to the folks. Say it.
But to what? No, but seriously, I think that's what the public wants. That's what people want. They want you working together. You know, you have an election, you're one thing, you're another, whatever party, but once you get elected, you govern and you represent every single person regardless of what their affiliation is, and you got to put that aside. And I'm the first one to tell political leaders that, and I'm proud of it.
And they still nominate you. Okay, good. On this side, anybody want to talk about that? Why are you all kumbayaing so much? Is this new? What's going on? Something in the water? Was it the dioxin X?
Joy, we've always been this way. One particular paper tries to say that we're fighting all the time.
Oh, boo. Well, no, not quite. All right, since you want to throw down, let's throw down. All right, so Don's cool. He's cool. So, for the last 4 weeks, I've been sitting at this trial in Central Islip, right? And Newsday's come up an awful lot, right? And sometimes this is the trial of county executive. No, sorry, a different trial. This is the trial of Tom Spoda, Suffolk's former district attorney, who I've known for a long, long time, and also Christopher McPartland, his former chief, head of the anti-corruption unit. It's been kind of interesting to sit there because Newsday and Newsday articles have come up there an awful lot. And whether it's the prosecution or whether it's the defense, they talk about it in terms of negative Newsday articles. Negative articles that talked about what was happening in a gang task force, articles that were this kind of stuff. And every time they say that in court, I think to myself, negative to who? Right? Negative to who? None of those articles were incorrect, and those articles provided the first glimpse into what is going on at that trial in Central Islip today. So I say, yay Newsday. And if you want to meet me in the parking lot, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that.
So I want to do another Yay Newsday, because I think the article that came out about the discrimination in housing and how people in our counties are being steered to certain neighborhoods is something that is very important as we look at the vision for the island. I think more has to be done to make sure that we are doing things in a way that does not steer people to certain neighborhoods, that we have real estate agents, and we can't just be blaming the real estate agents, but that there is more education all around, and Newsday brought that to light. And so I think that kudos to you.
Thank you. I'll ask a question about diversity and growing diversity on Long Island, but first I want to get to my supervisor, my supervisor. Speaking of traffic jams, no. What's going on? What is going on? What good is going on in Huntington?
A lot of great things. So good morning, and it's certainly great to be here. And first of all, I just want to thank Supervisor Schaefer and Supervisor Carpenter, because we meet probably bi-monthly or every other month as the Suffolk County Supervisors Association. And we get together and we discuss how to solve various problems, and we learn from one another to really tackle them regionally. I think it's been very productive. So, matter of fact, Supervisor Schaefer, if I knew that you needed another AAA, I would have let you borrow one of our AAAs, especially as a former part of Huntington. Babylon was once part of the great town of Huntington, so we still love you guys over there. So it's certainly great to be here. We're going to...
Chad, just send us a couple of those large businesses on 110.
And let me jump in here just for a second. That is a Republican and a Democrat talking to each other about this. Kumbaya on. Kumbaya on.
So we'll start down in Huntington Village area, and as you mentioned, we just had a very successful Christmas parade where thousands attended. It's been going on now for 8 years, and I think those types of attractions, whether it's the St. Patrick's Day parade or very cultural arts affairs, or doing the historic bar crawl with our town historian, these are all things that attract people to the downtown area. And I think having the mix of Heckscher Park, the Heckscher Museum, and if you've been down to Heckscher Park lately, it's the best it's looked in over 70 years. It's decorated for the holidays. It's really doing great. You have the Heckscher Museum there that's celebrating its 100th anniversary. You have the Huntington Arts Council. So you have the focus on culture and arts, but also entertainment, with the Paramount being ranked one of the top 5 destinations in the world in terms of entertainment. and really great restaurants and bars, but also services down there. We're tackling the parking issue. We just bought a new parking lot across from the Mac Steakhouse, which was a former bank, that's going to help yield 76 more parking spaces. We also have, we've launched a Passport parking app that you could pay for your parking spots online that services the train stations, but also the downtown areas. The good thing right now, if you're coming down to Huntington, you don't have to pay for parking through January 1st because we're in the holiday season. So you can park it anywhere you want as long as it's a legal spot. Don't park in a fire zone or a handicap spot. We will not, excuse you for that, but anywhere else you could park for free. In addition to that, we also hired a project manager for the new parking garage that we're focusing on the area of New and Green Street that will help yield about 300 spots. So we're working on the financing for that, and I think that's going to be very, very successful going forward.
Parking lots are very parking structures are one of the most expensive things. That's why you're working on the funding, yes. I would imagine.
Yes. So it can be part bond and hopefully part grant money too.
All right.
Yes.
How much would that bad boy cost, just so people know?
Well, every second that goes by, it's getting more expensive. That's why we've got to do it sooner rather than later. Probably around $12 million.
There you go, for a parking structure.
Yes. That will yield about 300 spots. But it's needed, especially for the balance, when you're going down there. It's deterring a lot of people that sometimes on the high peak points, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday nights, to really go down there. But also the businesses need it too, because we have a lot of new businesses that are opening up in the area, which I think is very, very important. Once we go south on 110 to Huntington Station, a lot of great things going on there too. The Conti Center, which is a community center, which is the old armory, that will be groundbreaking in about March of 2020. A great facility that will help youngsters, senior citizens, veterans, and really be a nexus for the area. Also, we are focusing on opening our second spray park in the town of Huntington and Huntington Station 2 in the Manor Park area, hopefully for the following year. We're still completing the Southside Sewer Study, so if anyone wants to open up their checkbook for $46 million to build those sewers south of the train station, that will really help with the revitalization there. Working along with our state officials, and we also had conversations with the EPA to secure money and that capacity, because that will really help with the revitalization south of the train station. If you've been down to the train station area, we just received about a year ago a $4 million grant to help with paving and parking and really help improve the actual train facility area, which is very good. We completed the Northridge project in Huntington Station, which has a mix of commercial use and also apartments above, which are already taken. The next big project that's going on now is the Gateway project, which will have about 70 units in it, with commercial space downstairs. Targeting those areas, one area will be a restaurant. One area in the Northridge project is a deli, and also the first engineering firm will be coming to Huntington Station too. So really great area of development there. Once you cross the street, we'll work on the transfer of land from the state to the town that will go over for development on the right side. We want to see continued mixed-use development with commercial and apartments, which will be very, very exciting. Also, for our veterans, we're completing our Columbia Terrace project in Huntington Station, where it's going to be 14 units for our veterans. That will hopefully be opened up in about January or February of 2020. So that's going very, very well, too. So we continue to keep the focus in Huntington Station and, in the resources, because we want to revitalize it. And this has been a struggle that's been going on since the 1960s with the war on poverty and urban renewal. So it's something that we owe our constituents, we owe our residents, and really has been the focus. Once we continue up south on to 110, right near the Babylon border, where we have the 110 corridor, which is really like the economic center of Long Island in terms of services, attorneys, financial services. We're looking also at plans, zoning plans there, to see what we could do to further attract offices and businesses and mixed use there too. So that's in the planning stages now. We're having active conversations with our town board members and the community in the area to see that area really improve over the next several years.
Now, the town is kind of interesting because you've also had some blowback on, this was before you got in office, go ahead, I'll give you, on apartments and what apartments look like and how high the apartments are. You had a real big blowback to the point where you guys did something.
Right.
Talk
So
about the blowback and
what it is our focus on development now is in Huntington Station and probably the 110 corridor. Down in the village, there's always this ongoing dialogue of how to balance attracting new businesses, creating apartments, but also keeping the quaint downtown area. So that's a discussion we've had in terms of height restrictions and what we call floor to area ratio to make sure we can keep that balance. So we've been working on, legislation that would probably strike a perfect balance on that. We did have a public hearing. We're in discussions with our town board members and, of course, various stakeholders to see what would be the best in terms of legislation for that. That was only focused on the Huntington Village area. It exempted other parts of the town, so the balance would be kept in the village area. Especially when we look at our sewer capacity, traffic, congestion, and parking, that's where the focus would be on, to make sure that we consider all those factors when moving forward with any plans down the village.
Thank you. I want to go to Ralph, but quickly.
You really hit the nail on the head, and it's so important, these issues. We want to go ahead with these developments. Every idea you've brought to us year after year are phenomenal, but we really do need the state and the federal government's help to increase the capacity in our infrastructure, to build those parking garages. You asked a question, how expensive? If you build just one story over a parking garage, over a ground parking, it's $30,000 per parking spot. You could send Ubers to your commuters' homes every day for much less. Sewage capacity, we really have to bear down on these issues because all of our development projects are so dependent on these infrastructure projects, and they're wildly expensive. So we should be lobbying together for more help from the state and federal government to expand sewage capacities, to expand power, and to make our roads more workable.
Ralph, I'm going back to you. How on earth did you get a 100% affordable housing project done? I think that may be a first, actually.
It's the first in Nassau County as far as county supervisor, county executive, and I know. It's very simple. You have to realize that we have to keep the millennials on Long Island. I think everybody in this room that grasps the smart growth concept knows that we have to keep the kids here on Long Island. Minneapolis and Iowa and Michigan may be nice places, but we want to keep them here. So what our board in the Village of Farmingdale looked at is, what can we do? We had a developer come and look at a piece of property that we can put 61 units of 100% affordable housing. The housing will be between $55,000 and $95,000, and it'll be a mix in 3 categories of the earned income. The $95,000 kids will be right next door to the $55,000 kids. Everything will be integrated in one area. And just to give you an example of how much less it will cost, I'm just going to pick a person paying earning $60,000 will pay $1,000 a month rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. Right now, the market rate in Farmingdale for not affordable workforce housing is about $2,700 for the same 1-bedroom apartment. So you can see we can help keep the millennials on Long Island. That's almost 1/3 less the monthly cost of living. And that's how we're doing it. We got it passed, and we're looking for it to move forward in 2020.
I see Eric waving. Oh, we're going to have you want to introduce what we're doing here? So help the people.
Again, question for we have the Long Island Youth Summit every year now, 12 years running. There's 100 kids here today from 5 different schools. We have a question from Amityville High School. So, Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin, and I'm from Amityville, Suffolk District, and I wanted to know about how in Amityville there was 300 mobile homes, and they were stripped out for apartment complexes, Great Barns, that were 2,000 to 3,000 or more, and a lot of people couldn't pay for that. So I wanted to know, and most of them are homeless. So how did that help us as younger people and them who lived in those mobile homes?
You want to answer? Here, this is, you can't, can you, your eyesight's better than mine, but this is Angie Carpenter. She's going to be talking to you first.
It's not in my town, it's in the town of Babylon. But coincidentally, earlier, I had asked Supervisor, who unfortunately had to run out to a meeting, Supervisor Schaefer, about that. What happened when the people that were in that mobile home park were going to be displaced? They had actually hired someone to work with the developer and with the residents of the mobile home park. Each resident of the mobile home park was given $20,000 to help them with their relocation, and everyone did find a home after all was said and done.
That's in a town different from his town, though, right?
No.
That is a-
No, he's
okay.
talking about in Amityville, the mobile
Oh, okay.
home park on 110 that is now Graybarn.
There you go. All right. So everybody got 20,000. I don't know how far that went, but that's what happened. Yes.
Hi. Hi, my name is Amelia Tisk, and I'm also from Amityville High School. So this entire thing you've been talking about revitalizing the downtowns, and meanwhile, we have our village of Amityville, and I was down there recently painting the windows, and I noticed that all the windows we were painting, there was nothing in the stores. We have no more storefronts, and really, we have no urban development, we have no restaurants, and it's like, as a young person, I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I feel like there's nothing to do. I just sit at home on the weekend because there's nothing in my town. And I feel like it's the same thing that goes on in like Copeg and Wyandanch, like the lower income communities. And you guys are talking about all your communities and saying, we got this, we got this, we got this, and we have nothing. And I just wonder why it's different.
Supervisor Carpenter again.
What you articulated was just, it really touched my heart, and I wish that when there are projects before us on town boards, and we have to make the tough decisions, and we're talking about trying to keep our young people here and doing these kinds of projects, if someone like you would come forward and say, we want you to vote for this. This is precisely what we need. Because that's not who we hear from. We hear from those that want the status quo, don't want anything to change. So thank you for saying that.
Okie dokie. There's one more question. Dude. Thank you, Nathalia. Your voice carries well. One more question. One more question.
Time for it? So we're kind of over time here. Okay, let's try to get another question. One more question in.
I could tell you a joke while he's taking the mic down, but I'd get in trouble.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm from Wyandanch Memorial High School. My name is Vivica Mitchell, and it's so sad that we don't have anything much for our school. We didn't even pass to get our grant. And to hear all this development that wants to go on throughout Nassau and Suffolk, it's sad that we barely have anything for ourselves. So how can you guys help us as we help you guys?
The question was, how can supervisors help communities like Wyandanch get what they deserve, actually?
A lot has happened in Wyandanch with Wyandanch Rising. In fact, it was interesting. Yesterday morning on News 12, I saw an Olympic skater ice skating along with the News 12 reporter on the ice rink right there at the base of the Wyandanch Rising project. So I think the town of Babylon made a major, major commitment to the Wyandanch community and Wyandanch Rising.
I think what the three questions we're getting at is that on Long Island, we're a community of communities and also a community of have and have-nots. And each of you, as the respective leaders of your community, this is very, very unfair because I don't have a lot of time to devote to you, but talk to me. How do you deal with equalizing out the have and have-nots, to listening, taking concerns in, and actually coming up with policies that are going to address some of the issues that these young people came up with?
I'd like to address this one because we have the most diversified downtown in all of Long Island in Hicksville. Part of it has been partnering with so many great people here. I see my colleague Harry here with us, working with creative companies, the engineering firms. Many of them, you see their signs hanging all around us. I see Cameron Engineering right behind me. Working with creative thinkers. Andy Zakura, I saw him a few moments ago. Great work you're doing. But by partnering with people, finding out what their needs are. Lots of restaurants are opening up. It's very, very exciting, but it does cost money to eat in these restaurants. So we're looking for the diversification of companies. We have worked harder to get the message out that we're open for business, especially in places like downtown Hicksville. We've got the busiest railroad station in all of Long Island. We are changing our zoning to make it more attractive and fixing the building department to make these applications move so much more quickly. These are the ways that you attract so many businesses, companies, developers, making sure that we're taking hurdles away. We know people have been so frustrated in our town in the past, and we're working hard to change that. But step one is to get all of the stakeholders together, from all walks of life, from all ethnic backgrounds, all age groups, and get them to the table. And that's been a very productive step in the town of Oyster Bay.
Well, let me go to Mayor Fair and Mayor Cavallaro, and anybody can jump in at this point. I'll keep looking back and forth. You two, in addition to you, Supervisor Clegg, you all have some of the most diverse communities on Long Island. You all do. Not you, Mr. Warham, but...
I would say, Joy, I would say that these are great questions from the students here. What I would suggest is that they remain active and certainly stay in touch with your civic leaders and your chambers of commerce, because those are the people who can bring those issues to us in elective office. That's very important. A lot of times what we see here as mayors and supervisors are the people who don't want anything, and we rarely hear at public hearings for the people who really support projects. So I would recommend that you stay in touch with your civic associations, your chambers of commerce, have your parents do that, and make sure that we get the information we need. Something just quickly that we're doing to keep young folks on Long Island, which we think is vital, in our Hauppauge, it's now the Innovation Park of Long Island in Hauppauge, the Hauppauge Industrial Park. We in Smithtown are beginning to put overlay zones in there, and this comes from the Lima planning issue that take place with the Stony Brook University did in a survey of the Hauppauge Industrial Park, and they claim that we need to put a residential component in that industrial park, which has never been done, and we're in the planning stages of doing overlay zones to produce residents for young people, young professionals, so they have a place to live, to stay on Long Island.
Let's go down to Mayor Fair.
Yeah, Joy.
Valley Stream.
Yes, Joy, everyone knows, I think, we're very, very proud of the diversity we enjoy in Valley Stream. I do have a little insider information to this, though, because we mentioned the mayor is a part-time job. My full-time job is a high school teacher. I've been teaching in high schools in Valley Stream for 36 years, and one of the best nexus I see to the kids is that I'm with the kids every day. In our school system, there are over 60 languages spoken, and we're very proud of that. 60 languages in the school, that we have a very diverse neighborhood, and one of the nice things is that you have to keep those lines of communication open. And all of us applauded these students for their comments, and we all loved it. And I have to say, as I mentioned, it's a little insider information. I'm thrilled when the kids come up to me in the hallway and they'll say, Mr. Fair, what about this, or what about that, or we heard about this development, or we love the summer concert series, or the Winterfest was great, or all these different things. A lot of times we'll get about commuting, or they want to go into the city and parking, and the seniors will talk to me. I also teach driver ed, so they're also talking about driving. But so they do talk about parking, and it's the best thing is to listen, to communicate and listen and hear, and then we do have that kumbaya, and you try and work together as best you can with students, seniors, first responders, veterans. You have to get everybody in the room. 30 years ago, Valley Stream put together the United Community Party. Our government right now is 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and an independent, as it has been for 30 years. And we're proud of that, and we think that is a lot of what makes Valley Stream as great as it is.
All right. Eric is stalking, so quickly, Judy.
We're so fortunate in North Hempstead because we have a phenomenal North Hempstead Housing Authority. So we have housing authority developments throughout the entire town. So each of our communities has, although some of it is high-end housing, there's also some housing that is very affordable housing. And I think that's the key. It's that the affordable housing is integrated into all of our communities. I loved what Angie said when she said, come to the town board meetings, advocate, people listen. So we're very fortunate because our council people are always advocating for all our residents, and it's important to hear from it because we hear from the naysayers. We need to hear from those who want to see change.
Peter, and then let's go to Don.
Yes, so
Quickly,
as I
he's
indicated
stalking.
earlier, when we were doing our rezoning, we had probably 500 individuals comment. The voice that we heard earlier from the 3 young people is usually a voice that is unheard. One of the interesting opportunities for public input we had was at our street fair. And one of the things we did was we had a board where you could write a note or a comment on a sticky, a yellow sticky, put it up on the board, which we got hundreds of comments, many from young people. And in that context, we got a lot of young people saying, I want housing, I want services for my constituents, my young fellow residents. So, as was said by the 2 supervisors, and a lot of this is adult speak, you show up at a town board meeting or whatever it is, but you have to engage in some way. You have to use your honor societies or your civic groups within your school to engage with your public officials because we hear from a lot of constituencies, developers and residents who have money, who have the ability to communicate their messages. We do not hear from young people in a way that moves us many times. And I think that one example where we have a street fair where people are just walking around writing comments on a sticky and we get a tremendous number of comments from young people just shows that you do have a point of view. You just got to you have to make it known. And I will tell you from a practical matter, in government, the squeaky wheel does get the oil. And so you have to advocate for yourselves. And I would just say that in Westbury, when we did our rezoning, we included 2 millennials on our planning committee so that we get the input of the millennials. But it's not easy, but you got to advocate. Westbury is one of the most diverse communities on Long Island. We're trying to do things in the housing front, recreation front, all the other things that you talked about to try to address those needs. But it's not going to happen unless you advocate for yourself and your parents advocate for you.
Don, right quick.
First off, I want to say thank you because it's been great for me. I've been taking so many great notes of comments that the supervisor made. One in particular that sticks out with me was Angie Carpenter. How she says, when a developer comes in, the developer really needs to do that reach out to the community. And with 1 second, Supervisor Bosworth said that is such an important point. Other things that I picked up are how to give a compliment to Newsday and how to be Joe Saladino. And one of the things that I will tell you is when something that's very near and dear to Joy, obviously, is the hub. And Joe actually touched on something about funding. And one of the benefits we look for in this hub is the fact that the state is making that investment in parking. And that's why this is a different project this time. And when you talk about the community and the benefits That is one thing I will compliment, Scott Reckler. I was on the phone with Kevin Law, just talking about this yesterday. They brought in the players, they brought in the representatives, and they brought in someone like Councilwoman Gooseby, who represents Uniondale, and they're going to have a true community benefits program where they're going to go there and they're going to reach out to the community and make sure that community is not just going to see a structure built there and housing, but there are going to be true benefits that are going to reach everybody in that community, from the workers to the schools. And if this is successful, it can be a great model for every other major development along the line. So thank you all, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Joy.
Joy, is it possible for me to make one quick comment? Is it okay? Are we out of time? I'm sorry, Eric.
Go, Mike.
Go ahead, real quick. I actually have a millennial on my board. When I first was appointed mayor prior to being elected, I was filling a spot of our mayor who retired. I appointed a millennial. I have 4 millennials on my zoning board, 2 engineers, an attorney, and a builder. So we've done that in Lindenhurst. We've integrated the young folks in. They've got all the ideas. They keep the old folks moving, and that's how we're changing what we're doing. Thank you.
You all have been unusually attentive this morning, and for that I thank you. Quick aside to my young friends in the back of the room. You only have to be 17 to run for school board, so you can try to be an elected official. That's number 1. And number 2, since you're all together with Natalia, you might want to think about a millennial or a young people chamber of commerce. That said, I'd like to thank everybody up here. I think we've had a good and fruitful discussion. And beyond that, I think you all need to give yourselves a hand, because it ain't easy early in the morning, right?